noise.
Gracias, I think your party.
Okay. Okay. Still having folks come in. If you joined us, please mute your mic. If you are here for the Office of Aging and People with Disabilities Implementation Plan Review discussion of Senate Bill 739, you are in the right place. We do have live sign language interpreting and closed captioning as well. And we will be doing this meeting on Teams. We know that that sometimes doesn't work 100% for everybody in the community. However, the government has told us this is our application we need to use. So we're going to go forward today. Welcome in. Those of you who are joining us now, please mute your mic when you enter. My name is Stephanie Stevens, and I use she, her pronouns. I work in community engagement. I'm not a subject matter expert, but I am here today to help facilitate the conversation. You will note that there are quite a few folks in the community joining us today, and a few folks who are from our agency. They're really just here to listen. We want this to be a table set for you, so that you can hear what's happening inside our organization when it comes to Senate Bill 739 implementation. It's a table, but we are going to be doing a lot of talking at you today because there's a lot to update you on. So we hope that you will bear with us. We have an opportunity for folks to discuss in small group, and we will be asking how you want to further engage later on. You can advance the slides, please. So again, my name is Stephanie Stevens, she, her pronouns. We'll go through, this is the agenda today. We'll go through some community agreements. We'll hear from our APD director, Dr. Nikisha Knight Hoyle. Then we'll have an overview of Senate Bill 739, our implementation plan, timeline. There'll be an opportunity for folks to break out into small group discussions so that we can hear from you, you can hear from each other. Those groups will then report out so we can hear what was discussed. We have a few polls that we want to put to you so we understand how you might want to continue to engage in understanding the implementation work or what your role could be in that work. And then we'll talk a little bit about wrap up and next steps. And that is a lot to do in an hour and a half. So, we'll try to get through it as best we can. And we're really, really appreciative of you being here. Next slide. So those of you who just joined us, make sure you have your mic muted as we can hear all the background noise. Our community agreements here at ODHS and at APD that we're putting forward today for this meeting are to be present and participate. If you can be on camera, folks can see you, that's great. We know there are many things going on in life, but if you can try as best you can to be present, that would be great. Please contribute. We want to hear your thoughts. Contribute creatively. Engage with professional respect. We know you'll all do that. We want to foster accountability and collaboration in this room today and uphold a safe and inclusive environment. And we commit to growth and positive progress. And so we're hoping that folks can agree to those today. One that I like to add is to accept non-closure. We know that there is a lot that we're going to hear today about implementation, and we might not hear everything. You might have questions that don't get a chance to be answered. We do have an opportunity for you to directly contact us at the end, but we hope that you'll understand that not everything is going to be tied up with a tiny little bow. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our director, Dr. Nikisha Knight Hoyle, who will do some opening remarks before we get started with the Senate bill. Nikisha?
Thank you, Stephanie. Good morning, everyone. As Stephanie said, my name is Dr. Nikisha Knight Hoyle. I'm the director of the Office of Aging and People with Disabilities in the Oregon Department of Human Services. I use she, her pronouns. I want to begin by thanking you all for participating in the SB 739 implementation table. We're excited to be with you all today and look forward to future discussions with you all as well. Now, before we dive into SB 739, I'd like to begin by sharing the path to this point in time. I've been in my position now just over 3 years. And since I moved into this position, safety has been one of my top priorities. In 2022, I restructured APD to include deputy directors for key aspects of our work. One of the positions that was created was a deputy director for safety and regulatory oversight, which was an essential step toward really shoring up our safety and regulatory system, which again, moving into this position, just elevated to the top of my priorities, and actually a major area of concern of mine, if I'm honest. Carissa Neufeld joined APD and took on this work in 2023. And so really excited to have Carissa on board. Has been doing amazing work, and there's so much work to be done. To gain deeper understanding about the strengths and opportunities that are inherent in our safety and regulatory system, as well as in support of our safety action plan, we contracted with Alvarez and Marcel. And in 2025, we call them affectionately A&M. A&M issued a preliminary and a final report. And also in 2025, SB 739 was passed. In addition to implementing A&M recommendations, we have many other legislative mandates underway. If we can move to the next slide. As you see here, as a system, we have many legislative mandates that are impacting our system. Each mandate represents an opportunity to strengthen and forge new pathways to improve safety and regulatory oversight. And as you can see, this is a heavy lift. And in a few moments, we'll touch on some of these mandates. I'm now going to turn things over to our APD Deputy Director for Safety and Regulatory Oversight, Carissa Neufeld, who's going to go over SB 739 in greater detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikisha. As Nikisha noted, I'm the APD Deputy Director for Safety and Regulatory Oversight, which includes 3 areas of responsibility: adult protective services, our licensing and regulatory oversight, and our safety and serious incident team. Collectively, these 3 program areas, we have provide several safety initiatives that we are trying to implement. Today, of course, we are focused on the implementation of Senate Bill 739. As many of you are aware, Senate Bill 739 was passed in the 2025 legislative session and established several provisions to strengthen the safety and oversight of the licensed community-based care facilities and adult foster homes in Oregon. Senate Bill 739 provides new requirements for the department. Some of these key requirements include requiring the department to be on site within 24 hours at a community-based care facility upon receiving a report of a death-related complaint. Requiring applicants for new community-based care facilities and adult foster homes to provide additional information with their applications. Requiring facilities to notify residents of their designees of substantiated abuse, substantiated licensing violations, and if a facility is placed on the Facility Enhanced Oversight Supervision Program. And provide allowances for adult foster providers to receive a 2-year license in their licensing history demonstrated if they've demonstrated substantial compliance over the past 3 years. The legislature provided funding for 39 positions to support the implementation and ongoing management of these new requirements. Next slide. As I talk about the implementation plan, I do want to emphasize, like all implementation plans, this is a fluid process. and timelines may be adjusted based on unanticipated competing resources or the feedback that you provide us today. We've been actively working on a proactive, overarching safety action plan since 2024, which includes all the safety and regulatory programs I am responsible for. Some of those priority projects include work also required in Senate Bill 739. Given that, we were able to begin work to implement on-site visits to facilities with suspicious deaths in September. However, we're looking forward to hiring additional staff to help maintain this mandate and manage the overall licensing complaint work. In November, we anticipate beginning recruitment for at least 10 positions to help with the implementation. And in January 2026, we plan to implement the allowance of local licensors to issue adult foster home providers 2-year licenses if the provider has demonstrated substantial compliance for the past 3 years. Rule changes will be implemented by June 2026 for this. Next slide, please. Our team anticipates being able to implement several important mandates by July 2026. The requirement for the department to provide findings from a licensed complaint investigation to the community-based care facility and long-term care ombudsman, including any civil penalties and conditions applied as a result of substantiated findings. The requirement for the facility to notify residents of the designee of substantiated or their designee of substantiated abuse findings or substantiated licensing findings or notification that the facility has been placed on a facility enhanced oversight supervision program in their facility within 70, must notify folks within 72 hours of receiving those reports. The department also anticipates being able to implement the requirement for the department to respond within 5 days when a facility asserts substantial compliance following notification of an immediate jeopardy situation and when there is a condition of restriction of admission that has been imposed on the facility. If the department's investigation affirms substantial compliance, the department must withdraw the restriction of admission within 24 hours. Next slide, please. So continuing on with our proposed implementation timeline for October 2026, the department will implement the requirement for newly licensed community-based care facilities that do not have the experience operating or managing a community-based care facility in Oregon to hire a consultant for the first 6 months of operation. The facility may be required to continue the consultant if the department determines the new facility is not operating in substantial compliance. The department is expected to establish by rule the minimum qualifications for a consultant or management company. The department is required to provide facilities. So by within this October 2026 period, we anticipate that the department will be implementing the requirement to provide facilities a summary of the licensing and survey process that the facility can provide to individuals or their designees at the time the individual applies for admission or the facility upon request. And finally, or excuse me, not finally, we anticipate implementing the requirement to notify the long-term care ombudsman when the department receives a request for an exception to a licensing requirement from a facility, and the department intends to approve the exception. The expectation is that that notification be sent to the long-term care ombudsman no fewer than 7 days before the exception is to take place. Next slide. As we move into the final quarter of 2026, we anticipate being able to implement the new requirement for the adult foster home and community-based care applicants to include certain policies and procedures with their applications. And we will implement a significant new requirement to conduct full site reviews for both newly licensed adult foster homes and community-based care facilities within 90 to 120 days of being licensed. And then finally, by 2027, someone needs to please mute. Yeah. And finally, by 2027, we anticipate will fully implement the new memory care standards that are required. These next two slides focus on the operational steps that we'll be taking to implement the new mandates I just spoke about. I'm not going to go into detail, but you can get a sense of what is expected. You can see recruiting, updating forms, initiating rule advisory committees, community engagement, etc. Next slide. Again, just more as we move through the quarter, the steps that we'll be taking to be able to implement the new mandates. So at this point, I'm going to turn things back over to Stephanie.
Thank you so much. Senator Gelser-Bluin does have a question in the chat, and I just wanted to put it out there before we did our small group discussions in case you would like to respond. Her question is, do these timelines comport with the statutory requirements? I'm looking at the bill, and statute appears to apply requirements upon effective date of the bill, which will be January 1st, 2026. I'm not sure if anyone would like to respond to that, or if we need to follow up later. And also said Senate Bill 811 requirements in the ODHS version of the bill were 90 days after sine die. I'm not sure if anyone from ODHS is answering. I can't hear.
Sorry. Thank you, Senator, for the questions. So when the governor signed the bill in her signing letter, she highlighted that the department did have multiple legislative priorities, and also the priority of implementing the recommendations from the A&M external assessment, and therefore had directed the department to put together the implementation table to be able to provide timelines for our ability to implement the different mandates. And so that's what we're presenting today. I don't know if Lakeisha has anything further she would like to add.
No, thanks, Carissa. I believe that you responded to that in a way that I would have. Thank you. Senator Gelser-Bluin?
Thank you. I think I'm just struggling a little bit because I understand the signing letter, and I can check with legislative counsel, but I don't think a signing letter changes the statutory requirements in legislation. And I know when Director Knight Coyle and I spoke after the signing, you had indicated that, of course, all of the statutory timelines would be complied with. And a number of the mandates that were listed on that list are very, very old. I mean, they've been in place for many years. It's not like those all just came on board now. And in 739, which we passed, many of the provisions that require new things came out of the department's bill in 811. And what the department asked for, and I looked at the latest amendment, like the last amendment that came out to it, was 90 days after sine die. So I'm just confused because these issues weren't raised to the legislature, and it's difficult to understand how things could be delayed by a year and a half when the statute clearly has a date.
Thanks.
Senator Gelser-Blumen, thank you so much for the question. And I hear and understand the frustration in your voice with the timeline. However, we, in looking at Senate Bill 739, weighing our A&M report, weighing the work underway within the Safety Action Plan, we are approaching this holistically. And the timelines that you see reflect our best effort given our current capacity to advance the work. And so that's what you see today. And so thank you for your question.
Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and move into the small group discussion portion, and that may not have answered everything I think that Senator Gelser-Blumen would like to discuss with you, but for sure, you can have a sidebar anytime. We'd be more than happy to arrange that. We do want to hear from you, though. We know that we have maybe about 25 staff in the room, and this is the opportunity for the folks who are in the room that are not staff to discuss. And we want to hear what excites you about this work, what concerns you have. We definitely heard one around timelines and legislative mandate. What questions you have. We are tracking the chat, and we know that there are some questions there. And what are other considerations that you want us to consider? And so we have facilitators that are going to be in the small groups. We're going to give it about 20. We have a little extra time, so maybe even 25 minutes, so that we can really capture some of your thoughts around this work and then come back together. And again, this is just the first meeting. We definitely have opportunities to continue to engage with you, but we wanted to ensure that we had an opportunity to notify you about what our plan was, and get some of your thoughts and questions about it. So we will go ahead and make those. We understand there's hands raised. Please go ahead and either put those in the chat, any questions that you have, or discuss them in your small group, and we'll go ahead and do those. We can get those set up. Andy? If you are somebody in this large group right now who is not staff, would you please raise your virtual hand so that we can go ahead and get you into a small group? Okay, so we see Tina Treasure is holding a hand up. If Sarah Ray, there's quite a few of you, so just give us a second.
Stephanie, those first couple people you mentioned, for some reason their name is grayed out, so I don't have a way to assign them to it. So I'm not sure if we just want to discuss with those folks here. Or...
Sure. Yeah. So it looks like we may be having technical difficulties with the folks that are still in this big room. But we're happy to hear your thoughts. So that's Tina Treasure, Ray, Sarah Ray. It's quite a few of you. So yeah, we'd love to hear what your what excites you about this work, concerns you have, questions, other considerations, and feel free to take yourself off mute. Sarah Ray.
Hi.
Hi.
I think that what excites me about this work is just that I think the quality of care is going to go up for our residents. I think that's the hope. I think that what concerns me is just the continuity of the rollout, making sure that it's consistent with all providers. I think that would be my only two comments.
Thank you. Jane Hagiri. You don't need to take yourself off mute.
Jane, it looks like you're unmuted, so please jump in.
We apologize for the technical difficulty of those of you who were not able to be assigned into a room. Feel free to speak into space. I have Tina. Go ahead.
Well, of course, what excites me about this work is that hopefully the care quality will go up. I hope that all the facilities will be able to understand that. I believe when more compliance is looked at, that there will need to be some changes in staffing levels and things like that. I've since I retired from the state, I have several friends and who have relatives in a lot of these facilities that I go and visit once in a while. And the things I see, I can see people really offering care and compassion, but as far as compliance with a lot of just hygiene issues and communication issues and things really bother me a lot. So those are the concerns I have. I know that we're, facing a huge shortage of care providers across the board. And so the change in staff that I see too must be really hard for the facilities to have trained staff all the time. So I see people giving care that don't know basic issues like how to empty a catheter bag, those kind of things. So I'm just really excited about are there ways that we can work together to 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 bring better care and that to be a continuum and not just when somebody's coming. I also had a question earlier, and it's probably going to be later on addressed in plans, but have we decided where the positions are going to be placed throughout the state? And then also I wonder if this group or some other maybe smaller implementation group will actually get to see the position descriptions when they're drafted, because I had some big questions about the difference between compliance officers and then I think it was resident care. I don't have my notes right here, but anyway, those are the things that I'd want to share. And I also would appreciate some direction on if we have questions that we can't address here because of time. Um, should we write those down and submit them to whom? Thank you very much.
Thank you. And yes, there will be a poll later about how you might want to stay involved in this work. And, I think what you said is very apt for that. Also, we will be giving the contact information for the director after this meeting, so you can always email them. Let's see her. Okay, other folks. Excitements, concerns, things we're not thinking about. There was a question I know about where positions will be. I don't know how far we are on that process or if folks want to answer that, but anyone else? Mandy, did we end up getting a lot of those folks into different rooms?
We had several people that joined after rooms had already been assigned, so.
Okay. So for those who are just joining us, we're at the part of the agenda where we're doing small group breakouts after the presentation that we heard, getting a sense of what excitements folks have around this Senate bill implementation plan, what concerns they might have, if there are questions, and yeah, just things we may not have thought of. So this is your opportunity to either speak into space, write it into chat, or you can take a little break until we come back. 11:20, I believe it is. Yep. So we got 15 minutes together.
This is Tina Treasure again. Since not everybody's jumping in, I'll go ahead and I found my notes. So I want to share one last concern I have. I know that I tend to look at projects like this when I'm involved in at the bigger level first, and then sort of move my way down to a more granular level. And when I'm still up pretty high, what I think I see, and I could be very wrong, and I hope I am, but there's right now a shortage or a fear of shortage of enough facilities, especially foster care homes, and things like that. Even, a lot of gosh, what do I want to say? A lot of corporations or whomever that happen to run some of the facilities may or may not be in good financial health right now. And so I know that we don't want to do anything in compliance that's going to be so onerous that, we don't have enough facilities anymore. But I also am concerned that that has kept us for quite some time, I believe, in being as vigilant as we should about fines or compliance stamps to put on facilities, only because you never want to overburden a facility so much that they're going to go out of business. But at the same time, if they're not giving quality care, something has to be done. And so I somewhere along the way, maybe a couple of months from now or whatever, or maybe it's been discussed. But how is that balance going to be thought of when actually giving direction to the new compliance officers and things? Thank you.
Thank you. I will tell you on the back end, we're furiously writing down your really important thoughts there, Tina. There are several things you said that we want to ensure we get into the record. I'm not sure that this room is where we can answer all those, but really appreciate your thoughts and your clear expertise. Other folks like to speak into space on the implementation plan? It's totally fine. We can wait. We have about, let's see, 13 more minutes together, it looks like, before we bring the groups back. So you can go ahead and take a little break.
So it looks like we have 11 more minutes. Tina, you can keep sharing with us or maybe take a coffee break. I just want to say how much I appreciate you showing up and being in space with us, you know.
Yeah, we apologize for the technical issues. I knew it would happen. There's always a problem with Teams.
No problem. It wouldn't be a call if we didn't have
Yeah.
some problems. And I'm fine. Everybody can, just ignore me and I'll do some other work I have until I hear you come back on. So thanks very much. And thank you, Nakisha.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have
And
about 10 more minutes. So
yeah. And I think we have some other guests in here too that are being silent, which you can be silent, or you can use the chat, whatever you're comfortable doing. This is just an opportunity for us to hear from you. You know, you're here because you care about safety, as we do. So, and thank you. And it looks like people are still joining. For those of you who are joining in, we have a few more minutes that are dedicated to hearing your responses to the questions that you see on the screen. So please feel free to either, open your mic or use the chat, please.
And if you didn't hear the presentation, we want to make sure that you'll be getting a follow-up with the slides. So welcome. If you're just joining us, folks are in breakout rooms right now. We had a presentation on our Senate Bill 739 implementation plan, and people are in small groups discussing what excites them about the work, any concerns they have, questions, or other considerations. And so if you weren't able to see that, just know that we'll go ahead and we're recording it as well. And we also have the slides for you after. So feel free to stay with us for a few minutes. Folks should be coming back in shortly. Or if you have thoughts, feel free to speak into space or put them in the chat.
Okay.
Looks like folks are starting to come back into the space. Feel
That was a little
free
quick.
to mute your mics as you come back in. I'm sorry if that felt abrupt. Sometimes that happens when you're in small group meetings. It's time, and it's time to come back in. Looking to see from Mandy if all the rooms are back in.
Yes, they are.
Okay, looks like some folks were dropped off the call and are coming back in by rejoining the meeting. So we'll go ahead and give it a second while they come back in. Well, hello. Were you unceremoniously taken out of our meeting? Welcome back. Really apologize. I'm telling you, that Teams is not the best when it comes to virtual meetings. Thanks for hanging with us. If you are joining us or rejoining us, please, love the small group format, not enough time. Yeah, it always feels that way. We're coming back into a big group now. It looks like some people actually got dropped out of the entire meeting. So we're waiting for them to rejoin. And it looks like most of folks have rejoined. Welcome back. Sorry if you were shut off before you felt the end of the time. We also know that there were a lot more folks that were interested in this meeting than we anticipated. In fact, if you take away the staff, there were probably 80 participants, which is quite a few. And so now what we're going to do is hear from, they're still joining. We're going to hear from the facilitators in the small groups. And if you're rejoining, make sure you do put your mic on mute, because we can hear all that wonderful background noise as you're coming into the big room here. Yes, we are recording this, and yes, you will receive
You're on mute.
Stephanie, you're muted.
Oh my goodness. How long was I muted? The entire time?
Just a
No.
few seconds.
No.
Okay. Oh, that's good. That would have been quite embarrassing. I see folks coming back in still. Welcome. Please mute your mic because we can hear all the background noise. And we're going to hear now the facilitators from APD one by one, sort of sharing some highlights of what they discussed in their small group so that you can all hear what each other talked about. And we'll start with Nikki. If you are here, go ahead and take yourself off mute.
Nikki, before you go, we're going to mute participants until we open it up for questions and comments after the report outs.
Before you do that, I want to record to tell you guys, a lot of people are having trouble with Microsoft, is what I was trying to tell you. Everybody's getting booted off.
Thanks, George. I think we're letting them all back in pretty quickly, so we're getting close. Thanks.
Okay.
Really sorry about that. Okay, go
All right,
ahead, Nikki.
thanks. Okay, super. Thank you, Stephanie. And thank you to my group. We had a lot of really great suggestions and information that was feedback that was shared. So I think some highlights in what was exciting is just the focus on the providing protections for folks that are in our long-term care facilities. There was quite a bit of excitement around the licensing every 2 years for folks that are in substantial compliance. There was also just there's quite a bit of actually conversation around that. There was some concerns also. There was an ask to really have some thoughtful definition around what substantial compliance means and to include the providers in that conversation and then have it included in OAR. There was concern around the timeline of the law and when we need to be in compliance. There was also some concern around the amount of hiring, which requires the hiring process, the training, the orientation, and it was just stated that that's really the number one in transparency in the ability to be all on the same page with all of just the body of work that that's going to entail. Let's see. There were some questions. Let me go through some of this up here on the top. There was some discussion, really good discussion around the consultants and how to ensure that we have really good consultants that are providing the guidance and direction that we would want our providers to have. There was some experiences shared where there's maybe some not so good consultants that are not providing accurate information, which then translates to poor outcomes to residents. So that was there's quite a bit of conversation around that. There was a question to confirm the date in which the 2-year licensing option was available. And so if I could just get confirmation of that date somewhere, either stated or in chat, that would be great. Let's see. There was, how am I doing on time, Stephanie?
You are good.
Okay. So some questions, again, the date was the question. There was questions around other people and suggestions about other partner agencies that folks felt like should be included in some of these implementation decisions. And I'll just read a couple of them, but there was quite a few and I've captured them in notes. But the Disability Rights Oregon, Oregon Patient Safety Commission, hospitals and hospital associations as it relates to discharge planning, some independent professional geriatric case managers, care managers that are not tied to necessarily to hospital discharges, foster home providers. So there were several suggestions for folks to be included in decisions. Let's see. More of the same. Again, all around substantial compliance and the need for providers to have input in that. And I think that in a nutshell kind of categorizes some of the discussion. It was really good. And then we got plucked out. So we didn't quite get to finish
Yeah.
thoughts either.
Thank you, Nikki. And we are capturing these notes in chat too. I see that Jerry Cohen said we did not discuss how courts might be notified, as well as the appointed guardians and conservators. And also some other external organizations that were not mentioned in your report out. But I have to say, we had limited staffing to do both note taking and facilitating is hard. So thank you, Nikki. And please, if there was something that was said that was not mentioned, put it in chat or even follow up later. We're going to now hear from Russ.
Thank you, Stephanie. Our group, several folks commented about how they were excited about the accountability piece. There was mention of a letter that had been sent prior to the department head regarding concerns, and they felt like that this was some action towards taking care of some of those situations and concerns. Was excited about seeing the enhancement of quality in what we do and the services that we're providing. It's good to have specificity of consulting services. Then we had some discussion around highlights and questions and concerns. In other words, while we're excited about the accountability, there are many other parts of this bill. The project management pieces, that was a way that the state is approaching project management was appreciated. But they did want to know the implementation plan moving forward. Will that plan continue to include partners? It was noted that there was partners that were left off, such as the United Oregon Provider Association, Alzheimer's Association, AARP, some of the AAAs, and so forth. And then it was brought up that the bill has a date of 1/1/2026. The law needs to be followed. The legal requirements included 6 months after this bill was passed, which gave the time for the agency to address any concerns that would help them be able to get this done by January 1st. And if we're not going to be able to do that, we need to either implement it on time or go back to the legislature in February and request an extension. There is lack of licensing for renewal of inspections, or lack of licensors for those renewals of inspections in facilities. Facilities are told that we don't, at DHS, don't have the staff enabled to get people, those licensors and some case managers on the scene in emergent situations. It's taking too long. Providers reported that that it is quote unquote awful when they try to get a hold of the local offices to get responses in a timely manner. And again, both licensors and case managers. And then finally, the substantial compliance. What does that mean? The person that asked that talked about how she had done her research and still felt like there was a lot of gray areas and that needed to be better explained. And also what type of adult foster home violations are going to show up on the FEOS. So that was a pretty brief synopsis of everything that we talked about. And folks, if there was folks in my group that I missed something or didn't get something stated correctly, please use the chat and I will copy that down and have this prepared for our leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Russ. And now we're going to move to Anne.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good morning, everyone. Our group had a lot of the same concerns that have already been addressed. We did have a couple of adult foster home providers who were very excited about this ability to care for older adults and people with disabilities, and the ability to have a 2-year licensing period, and to be able to work with other providers. And how rewarding it was to hear compliments when people come into their homes. In terms of concerns, The timing was a big concern kind of across the board. The Alzheimer's Association was interested in finding out more about how the department was going to incorporate details on the reason for the bill and the implementation, and they wanted to be listed as an external partner. I think that's been brought up already. We had an advocate who said that he was happy with this bill, but was concerned that there was more work and more work needed, especially as concerning people with disabilities. One provider was concerned about the consultation, the 6 months of consultation, and that the fees for that consultation might deter providers from becoming providers, and that it felt like there was some micromanagement happening, and stated that there was already a lot of training that was involved. There was concern about the community being disappointed, that there were some parts of the bill that were immediate and modest changes, but that those timelines and dates have pushed things out. And there was concern about how those will apply to provisions within the bill, especially related to the 24-hour notifications. There was emphasis that a lot of the provisions in this bill were very carefully negotiated with providers and others, but that those have been broken apart in the timeline. There was also concern about what's the liability for the state if the bill is not implemented as written and harm comes to someone, and concern that the statute cannot be set aside and rewritten. There were some questions about, in the presentation, not all of the provisions of the bill were included, especially as concerns the readable summaries, and that a discussion about that the department can't grant exceptions to state and federal law. This provision, I believe, in the slides was looked at occurring in October of 2027, and just some general concerns about implementation. There was talk of including federal ombudsman if a state ombudsman is unavailable to investigate. There were questions about how the participation of external partners, what that will look like as the regulations are being developed and as the bill implementation occurs, how will external partners be involved? And then finally, there was a concern about the department requesting the 120-day inspection, and there was a pop to start this immediately, but it's been pushed out, it looks like in the slides, and some questions about how external partners were put together, the need for more people with lived experience. I think you've seen that in the chat already. If there's anyone in my group who has something that I missed or got wrong, please feel free to interrupt me now and put in your 2 cents. But it was a thoughtful group.
Yeah, we have folks muted at this time, so if you could put it in chat, that would be great.
Perfect.
We have one more group to get through, and then we did have somebody stay in our large group who came later and couldn't be put into because tech. Again, apologies. Really sorry for the trouble that folks have been having with Teams. We will do our part to try to find another solution the next time. The last person that we're hearing from is Kara.
Good morning. Thank you. We had a lot of the same discussions that we've already heard from, thanks to our group. And so I'm just going to highlight a couple of areas that I think maybe weren't brought forward. But please, like Russ said, if I miss anything, please drop it in the chat. So a couple of the things that people are excited for is the enhanced timelines for the department and the initiation and completion of work. I'm hoping that the speeds up the regulatory process and that we're working in a more timely manner. The capacity with additional staff, folks were feeling could make a real difference. And the accountability on the agency side to our standards interpretation of and application. So folks are really feeling that the accountability piece is something that they're looking forward to as we do this work. Some of the concerns are a little bit in alignment with also the excitement is how do we move things forward in sync? Focus and a concern around the consistency in our current workforce, and as we onboard new positions, how are we going to ensure that we're training and onboarding in a sustainable and effective way to continue improvement. Our adult foster home, we had several folks that spoke to wanting to make sure that their voices, their unique voices are heard as small businesses and small business owners, and wanting to ensure that there's more opportunity to be involved in the process and in conversation. Folks were also wondering around and wanted to ensure we have the consistency across counties when it comes to the supporting our adult foster home providers. And across all of the settings, there was a concern on payments, on-time payments, and the compensation. And I believe that wraps up what we generally spoke of. So again, please, if I missed anything, drop it in the chat and I will be compiling the rest of the comments for the leadership team. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then in the main room, I went ahead and dropped those comments into chat. Again, here we heard a lot today around ways that you want to be involved, whether that's accountability, holding us accountable, being thought partners, the concern around inclusivity and who's invited to a table, issues around workforce and legislative issues. So we want to make sure that we hear that, and this was just our initial opportunity to tell us what you think about what we're presenting, but there will be more in the future. Where we are now is we understand that there were a lot of questions that didn't get answered today. We will do our best to compile those and get you answers. And if there are more questions, concerns, thoughts that you have later, because we know this is the first time that you've seen it, you will have the opportunity to look through the slides on your own or even rewatch the presentation so you can see what folks said. Sometimes people need a little more time to digest, and we want to make sure that we're open to those comments as well. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. So we want to ask you what your ideas are for the cadence of future meetings, how you want to be involved. What do you see personally as your role in this implementation work? So we want to first ask this question: what is your preference on meeting cadence related to this topic? And this topic really is the implementation of Senate Bill 739. We know there were a lot of other issues that were brought up today, and there are places where those can be addressed, but specifically for the implementation of this bill, what is your preference on the meeting cadence related to this topic? And I'm hoping that folks can see a poll on their screen.
Yes.
Okay, and does it work when you click it if you're not a staff from the agency?
Yeah. Yes, it worked.
Great. Okay, some folks are saying they can't see it and it doesn't work for them. So if you wouldn't mind, clearly you can use a chat. Just go ahead and put your answer there. Yeah. Again, we're having a lot of problems apparently with Teams today. Trying so hard to make this work. Right. Seeing a lot of votes for monthly. Okay, we'll go ahead and compile those. Feel free to continue to write it out. Some quarterly, but it looks like a lot of monthly. Yes, thank you very much, Senator Gelser-Bluen, for your work on this issue. Absolutely. So it looks like a lot of folks have interest in tracking this monthly. Great. And then we have another question, which is, what do you see as your role in implementation? And I do believe there's another poll, but if it doesn't work, feel free to put it in chat. We do see the names associated with your answer.
There's
Some
not
folks
a poll
wanted.
for that one, Stephanie.
Oh, there's not.
So,
Oh,
yeah. So the next
apologies.
two, I'm just putting the question in the chat for them to answer.
We see folks saying that they want to be on a rules advisory committee as one way. Some folks want us to consider smaller groups with a specific focus if it's viable. Thank you, Jerry Cohen, for that suggestion. Breaking some folks into various aspects of the plan. Okay, so think through what do you see as your specific role? What role would you like to play? For example, Jerry, you saying that you might be interested in a certain part of the plan. Which part? Senator Gelser-Bluen says regular updates to the legislature, the committee regarding implementation, specifically around the safety provisions and notification to residents and families. Presentation to other groups, making sure we show up in other spaces where folks are. A lot of folks want to be thought partners and provide expertise as their role. Okay, great. Keep it coming. And I believe there is another question. The last question is, what topics would you like to receive regular updates on from the team working on this implementation plan? So if we were going to give you regular updates, what would you like to see? Working to ensure that 10 of the law is implemented. Some folks say that they have a particular experience to share, but may not represent a particular group or hospital. Implementation related to AFH. Some are very large accountability related issues, and some are very specific. Thank you for answering those. Okay, ensure that you continue. We see a lot of questions. Is there an overall project lead? Who do we contact? Some of those questions as well. And like I said, we're going to compile all these and make sure that we take a good look at them and do our best to get back to you on them. And feel free to continue using the meeting chat. We're going to go ahead and turn it back over now to Carissa, who's going to talk about next steps. I just want to thank you personally for your time today. We had a lot of interest in this meeting. Wish we would have had a different system, but we have, and we'll do our best to try to get a different one next time. But again, thank you. And Carissa, if you would like to come back on and share next steps, that would be great.
Thank you, Stephanie. I just want to echo as well. I'm just so impressed with the engagement today, and so the fact that so many people are really interested in this work that we're doing. So thank you for taking the time to be in attendance with us today and space with us today, and for sharing your voices and things you're excited about, as well as the concerns that you have. So thank you. So for just next steps, we of course are going to begin our recruiting process. We are planning to more broadly engage community partners. There was kind of a short list of partners that were listed in the materials that were sent out, but we do recognize that we need to have more voices at the table to help inform the policies, the practices, the administrative rules, and those kinds of things. So we do plan to engage partners. We will begin the rulemaking process, and those who have expressed interest in participating in the rule advisory committees will be invited. We will be scheduling our next implementation table update based on the, it sounds like the consensus of the group around the cadence of implementing or updates. So, and then finally, we know this was a lot of information that we shared with you today, and we will invite your additional follow-up questions as you sort of process through kind of what you heard today in the conversations. Feel free to send information to the APD Director's Office. And we will be sending out a copy of these, the PowerPoint to folks as well. And then you'll also have the recording. Okay, thank you. We, again, just really appreciate your participation today. Look forward to our next meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. We hope you have a great day.